was the young, energetic, reform-minded Prime Minister of Italy. But like so many of his predecessors, Matteo Renzi has resigned well before the end of his term. He fell on his sword after losing a referendum on the constitution, and now his plans to reform the economy are in tatters. In a moment, we'll get the view from the streets of Rome. But first, this report by Azhar Sukri.
In the end, the vote wasn't even close. What Matteo Renzi had billed as a chance to cut government bureaucracy and make Italy more competitive became a referendum on his leadership. Nearly 60% of Italians said no to the changes he had proposed. And true to his promise to quit if he lost, an emotional Renzi offered his resignation.
Ho perso e lo dico a voce alta.
I lost, and I say it loud and clear, even if I have a lump in my throat, because we are not robots. I wasn't able to win. I beg you to believe that I did everything I thought was possible at this stage.
Italy could now face months of political uncertainty, and that comes at the worst possible time for its banks. Investors voted with their wallets. Shares of Monte dei Paschi slumped more than 4% after the vote. The world's oldest bank urgently needs to raise more than $5 billion if it is to survive in its current form. But volatility in the markets after the referendum may hurt plans for the bank to sell shares to raise the funds. European finance leaders gathered in Brussels were quick to try to calm investor nerves about Italy's troubles spreading further across the Eurozone.
It's a democratic process, and it doesn't really change the situation economically in Italy or in the Italian banks.
Very confident in the capacity of the Eurozone to resist to all kinds of shocks. I think that we have now a very solid system, a solid governance, a strong banking union, so I'm confident.
But Monte dei Paschi isn't the only Italian lender in trouble. The country's banks have nearly $400 billion worth of questionable loans on their books.
At current levels of non-performing loans, it only takes a modest crisis for a bailout to be almost inevitable in Italy. And I think Banca Monte dei Paschi, probably #1 on the list of candidates for a bailout.
Whoever takes over from Renzi will have the unenviable job of restoring credibility in Italy's financial system, and very little time to do it. Azhar Sukri, TRT World.
Well, we do have Azhar in the studio for more on this, but first let's go to Rome. Sarah Morris is there and has been hearing how Italians are reacting.
Well, this flag reads, "Let's get out of Europe," and that is certainly the hot topic on a lot of people's tongues here in Italy post-referendum. And these people standing behind me, they're supporters of the largest opposition party here in Italy, the Five Star Movement. It's Eurosceptic, it's anti-establishment, and if there was to be an early election as a result of this referendum, then the Five Star Movement is poised very well to be very competitive in that election. Now, the Five Star Movement has said before that if it was in power, it would call a referendum, and that referendum would be on Italy's membership of the Eurozone. Talk like this, of course, makes Europe very, very nervous. So today we've taken to the streets to ask Italians what they think about the prospect of being taken out of the Eurozone, whether or not they want it, and whether or not Europe should be nervous.
I think Italy should stay in the Eurozone and show off its muscles, as too often Europe leaves Italy in the lurch.
I think we should stay in, but only if every country in the currency bloc is treated equally.
For me, we should have been out yesterday. The Eurozone has destroyed us. They destroyed our schools and our health. And all we do is pay, pay, pay.
And on top of the concern about Italy possibly leaving the Eurozone comes the concern about Italy's banking crisis. With Matteo Renzi, the Prime Minister, no longer around, his plan for rescuing the banks may fall over. Now, if those banks fall over, banks in Europe that are exposed to the financial institutions here in Italy could also find themselves in a banking crisis too.
We'll stick with the banks. Azhar is back with us in the studio. Azhar, what is going to happen to Monte dei Paschi?
Yeah, that is the big question right now. Remember, over this year, it's lost about
over half of its market value. So it is a bank in trouble. As its share price has fallen and continues to fall after today's share price drop, it makes it harder and harder for it to raise that $5 billion or so that it needs to recapitalize itself. The next couple of weeks are going to be crucial for it, according to all reports. The board is going to meet perhaps over the next couple of days. One of the things on the table is apparently some private investors, possibly from the Middle East, sovereign wealth funds, could be interested in buying a stake. If all of that falls through, the big N word comes into play: nationalisation.
I'm relieved to hear that.
So it could be the job of the next Italian government to step in to actually save this bank, and of course then it'll be up to the taxpayer. And don't forget, it's not just Monte dei Paschi that's in trouble, it's UniCredit as well. As today we've seen its share price
we just saw it, didn't we?
Going down.
Yeah.
UniCredit is a whole different scale of problem for Italy because it's so much bigger. They need to raise, indeed, a big drop in shares today. They need to raise about $13 billion.
Right. Let me ask you about the broader economy. Renzi's going to be out, and all his ambitions to reform the economy down the drain. What did he want to do, and do you think anyone's going to pick up the mantle?
Yeah, his idea was to basically slim down government, in particular the Senate. Remember, Italy has had like 63 governments in the last 70 years. So they don't last very long. So his idea was that if you bring about that kind of political stability, that sets the stage for an economic recovery. So with all of that gone, that opens the door to what next for the political solution. And as Sarah Morris said, if the Five Star Movement gets in, their plan is to basically get rid of the euro altogether and all the austerity that goes with it and reform the economy that way.
Right.
So whatever happens next, there could be some very major moves in either direction.
Okay, and he did look like he was tearing up in your report, actually. He's very moved. Okay, Azhar, thank you very much for that.